Alrighty, daily trading recap. Quick little synopsis of the day's ongoings. We are 3 hours, 20 minutes after the close here. Just going to do, very quick and brief, not in-depth theoretical explanation of everything that happened today and where we're going from here, but just of putting in the work here to say what we did and keep ourselves accountable to not breaking that chain. SPY coming in with a 0.5% day in the green, 0.5% in the green. Market internal dollar volume on the day. As of a few hours after the close, NASDAQ $252 billion volume, NYSE $352 billion volume, OTC's $1.8 billion volume on the day today. To Christ be the glory as always. Also had a little MES trade. I normally do like to take some of these sometimes to just bank on, hey, if I do find a spot of potential exhaustion or a potential very nice risk-reward trade, whether it's technical analysis, whether it's double top, double bottom, it's just whatever that I feel. I'm just continually putting my eyes on the screen to say, hey, this could be an area. Okay, well, let's hold off on this. Well, hey, this could be a potential area. Let's wait for a little bit more conviction. And just potentially waiting for some points that do offer what I feel is more beneficial risk reward and letting them just potentially run for the whole rest of the entire day to see where they take us on an MES contract, just to control that size and mannerism as well. At this point during SPY, thought we were seeing a lot of selling pressure just overall on the tick today in the morning. Let's put a better perspective on. So in the morning, it was just hovering with a lot of selling pressure that it really just didn't want to push any higher buying pressure on the day. But yet the SPY was still pushing some pretty decent price action from what we were looking at. We're above VWAP. We're kind of tanking above, and we still wanted to be above VWAP at that point. So I think you can look at it that two different ways, but I evaluated it as, okay, price is certainly saying that we want to be above VWAP for whatever reason, but we're just indicating that this is all the selling pressure, and yet it still has the power to stay to the upside of VWAP. So at this little hard rejection after that double top, this was the entry here right around VWAP, and I was just risking the low of this candle to say I thought this could have been a potential reversal point. I think tick was around similar to the low of that selling range as well. Just looking for, hey, if this was going to hold here and then potentially look for an even further green day, or if anything was going to come out of that, it was just super easy and minimal cut for that. So that was that little MES trade that took for the 3-point loss, $15 loss on the MES contract side for the little slippage I did take there. But that was that little trade. And then, of course, the 9:30 strategy working out beautifully today too, and the full session day strategy working out beautifully again to pad some of the account that way, but just continue to utilize that automated algorithmic trading style to its fullest efficiency. Certainly love to see it. Let's get into, I'll start off with HTGM, if I could type in the little typey bar. HTGM, still can't short with my normal margin account, working on it, but these are the type of trades. This is one of the playbook trades that I absolutely love that didn't go after for a long time, but we kind of had two opportunities on MDVL and HTGM. HTGM held a little bit better and actually tested that previous spike from that. What this playbook trade is a news catalyst coming out pretty much immediately or in a short range after market close, shoots the thing up, it has its perk, and then it really does nothing else. Continuation into the close of the after hours and the whole market. Pre-market the following day can have its sketchiness, have its craziness, not a lot. We don't want to see huge volume coming in, huge price action percentage move against where it initially spiked on that first day, and then it just becomes a nice little easy short. MDVL, as I'll get into a little bit here, but of just playing the downside off of that move, that is really all the catalyst that is there, and it just becomes a slow, long bleeder for the pre-market the following day and the market hours of that following day after it had that crazy move there. So again, as I'm paper shorting this with TradingView, you can't really get short during market or during pre-market, to say the least. So there were times, and these were little spikes that I would wanted to have been a part of, but okay, it's whatever. I'm still using that as a modality of being in the trade, but just holding myself accountable to that and kind of actually pushing a button paper short within that first or second minute of market open as it's breaking new lows there. That was really the death indicator for the morning session in that hard sell-off with volume there. Covering a little bit into nice volume here as it was breaking lower. That's really the key for me, is just covering into strength with these trades, at least taking off half of the position, taking off a quarter position, paying myself along the way as the trade's working. And as I'll allude to on MDVL, that's why we do that, is to avoid the trap of these things just rapidly going against us and us having taken no profits whatsoever, going from a totally euphoric and ease and comfort lifestyle to, oh crap, this is going against me. I'm going to be losing money on this trade. I'm turning a winner into a loser. We want to avoid that. Just continually paying ourselves a long way with that trade. Huge seller at 155. That kind of scared me out for the final little paper cover that I had here, and you can see that by that big volume candle. Just huge volume coming in on the bid side, smacking that, but just immediately getting rejected. Nothing else to continue it behind it. Kind of fell into the trap of why was the reason that size was being shown there. Was it just this little fluke of, nothing is a fluke, but of kind of just an entrapment to say, hey, here's where price is going to go. We're going to run through it, but that's really all we needed. That was all the juice to the meat on the bone. And we're just going to kind of nicely fall off from there. And also trapping in a lot of longs that potentially were basing a trade off of that same move as well, getting them on the break side, the downside to that within this candle as it broke to new lows in the day underneath 145 there. But yeah, for whatever percentage move that was, it obviously wasn't slam dunk home run. It was pretty nice. Obviously would have liked to have been in from a better entry point with the actual short position if I was trading this for real. But going along with the idea, that is what I'm executing on, and covering into strength and practicing all those rituals is what I was really after with this specific trader on HTGM. And MDVL, same type of thing, but had the drop off, if we're going to get this out of the way here first, but had the little bit of a drop off in pre-market. So that's why I feel it's important with this strategy, even though it is sketchy, even though it can be famous last words of starting in short the previous night, of getting in after it has that initial perk, comes back to VWAP, and then really just has nothing else. Starting in short at that point, and then just risking off of that to say that this is this pattern playbook trade, and trusting in that. And if it goes crazy against us, then that's just a part of trading. And it's a rarity to happen, I think, with this specific, for how many charts I have of this exact move type happening. But always being aware of that and always understanding cutting losses quickly. And that is the risk of shorting overnight, but that is also what is tied into the overall beauty of this trade. So sure enough, yeah, would have liked to have been in this one. The same thing with even through HTGM having a little bit more sketchiness and double toppiness. Still would have liked to have been holding that one as well, short the previous trading day. Same thing on this one. Would have been covering very nicely with how price was talking during pre-market, and just maybe leaving a few on for market hours to see if there was more death left in it. But it started squeezing right away. Started entrapping souls, and then sure enough, as we get to after hours here, going totally berserkers, following along the similar lines of SBFM that we'll get into later as well. But yeah, pretty crazy. MNTS, also want to mention, took a break-even trade on. First green day mover, American aerospace company, 50 million floater. They had a pretty, I want to say, a real news catalyst today of they're getting launch agreements or some partnership with SpaceX on some specific launches there. I mean, pretty great news. And I want to say, oh, okay, well, I can say that about anything. And me trying to read into the news is not serving anybody. It's all about what the perception of the news is, not how I feel, what my perception of the news is. But like comparing that to like, oh, a company has a retail agreement with Amazon, or this software company has something with Microsoft. I feel like those examples, they can just all they're after is the keyword or the buzz phrase of the big name company, the Amazon, the Microsofts. Versus this one of like, if you're into aerospace, like it isn't just a joke to be working with NASA, to be working with SpaceX. There's got to be some legitimacy behind it. So it could be, I want to say, more of a real company, but that's not the factor of what I go for on this specific trade. But kind of bleeding off of that was the reason I wasn't really so keen on trying to even look at this one as a dip and rip, as it was holding underneath VWAP for a majority after the spike in pre-market here. Did make me feel a little bit more confident, and for how, and I mean especially after this insanely beautiful consolidation, did start to push me a little bit more to say, okay, well, it's still in that range. It's not a crazy high of a float to say that it can't happen. I mean, it's pushing a very decent percentage move as well, even on the daily. Just for kind of the sketchy manipulationness of it and the huge volume candle that we had today, we could see something like that happening. So don't knock it till you try it. Don't knock it off completely, but yeah, I just was not the most convicted of it. And that bleeds into how I was taking this little dip and rip trade as I see was holding here. I got very hard slippage against me as I saw it was holding very nicely off, or just barely ticking below that low of day and reclaiming immediately. So starting in with 100 shares, I did not like the manner in which I entered this trade. for the reason of I was looking at other charts. I think I was looking at SBFM or some, maybe I was still I wasn't in the futures at some point. Looking at something else, then kind of peeling my eyes back to this chart, seeing this little consolidation, and then just going within fractions of a second, going immediately to press the button. And after I pushed that button, okay, it's holding now, but it hasn't really broken to this high yet. It's not going to have it immediately. Within that little minute, after I pushed the button, it just hit me okay, well, what happened to that lack of full commitment or full conviction on this trade in pre-market that we were planning for? Okay, yes, it could still happen, but it was just, there was other factors that were going on after I pushed that button that made me think, okay, I made a mistake in this because I wasn't fully invested in this to begin with, of watching the price action like a hawk and waiting for that specific, buying that low of day, scooping it up and waiting for this type of move. And obviously, of course, I can knock myself because it worked out beautifully and it was the exact trade that I was looking for. I would have been walking away with a beautiful win. Should have been sizing up more into this trade. But just the manner in which I entered felt like a mistake and not how I want to be as a trader, and just a little bit too hasty. Maybe that was the intuition coming out of to say, wow, I see this chart and it, for whatever, that gut feeling immediately washed over me, made me push that button. And I can chalk that up to, wow, that was a great win, that I'm entering these things and I don't really even know why, versus I don't think I'm there yet. I can certainly say that for how many times I've been watching these dip and rippers more, of saying, okay, yeah, this was one of the best representations of that type of pattern that we've ever seen, almost perfectly to a T of the 945 time frame. Perfectly beautiful, crazy beautiful consolidation in order for you to feel very confident in an entry point and holding to say, okay, I'm risking low of day here. Like, there's no other way about it. Just like anybody and everybody, a blind grandma could see that one. But even after that, for just how I entered, I said, gosh, I don't want to be trading that way. And even for how well it was continuing to hold, just that temptation of, it's almost too good to be true. Were the words I literally said out loud. This is way too good to be true. Gosh, I feel like this thing is just going to tank for some reason, or just barely once again tick me out as it's breaking to a new low and then start to rip to a new high. Or maybe it doesn't rip to a new high, but just kind of rips a few more cents and then fails off once again. It just does something stupid. That's just where the market is, and that's how it's going to continue to go, right? The market is going to continue to evolve and adapt to beat any pattern or playbook trade that lots of people will slowly eventually realize and then master as it becomes more popular. That's what the market does, is it just eats all the lives and the souls of those people trying to play off of that. So, man, this was certainly one of the greatest representations of a nice dip and rip that we've seen in a long time. And yeah, it's just a total mental game, this trading of, I can't carry any bias of what happened the day previous. I was forgetting the ticker that happened similar to this one, that it had a pretty nice consolidation alongside, similar to MNTS today, and then ended up just dunking once again, just continuing DATS, I think it was. I'd have to look that up. But that same type of thing. And maybe I was a little bit scarred by that to say, well, I don't want to get another entry again. I don't want to test the fire on this one again because of that previous event that happened that is now affecting me today. That in a lot of cases, that's a good point, to be learning from your mistakes and moving on to the next one. But in other cases, sometimes it's a little bit tainted on the brain of, no, just trading the trade and not what your history is. Leaving your history in the past where it needs to be and trading today. I think that is a little bit of a blurred line statement in itself of, yeah, we need to be learning where we're going from and using those examples to apply to the future, but also just living in the moment, saying this is incredibly beautiful, and to not have been in this trade is certainly a FOMO inducer for sure. But living and learning. So that was MNTS. I think all I wanted to mention on that one. That SBFM. Beautiful, nice little trader on the day, and just continuing to still rip crazily in the after hours here. Chris holding it for a nice little opportunity for a full day extend, even in after hours there, selling the first half. Took it 2 times previously before my real entry of 20 shares here, like I wrote. Both of these times with 50 shares. I was still trying to play it as letting it do what it wants to do within like the first 2-3 minutes of market open. Define its craziness, pick your volatility side, but even through that of how it's set up as it's getting nice and a little wedgy. If it breaks to the upside, I could see it going from there pretty quickly for how we are in this third day play, for how it moved yesterday in the second day, for how it's holding already well in this pre-market today. That was just the mindset, and as it started to break to the upside within that third minute, said, okay, I think this could be a point. Maybe the reflection should have been, well, gosh, yeah, it is almost a little bit chasey. Since it is so close to market open still, maybe I should just size back a little bit compared to trying to go still at its with my initial, I would have liked to take 50 shares on this either way. I would have liked to take a much larger position size, especially seeing in hindsight for how far it did actually run. But that's what I was just holding myself to. Okay, maybe I should have sized it down to 25 shares. But sure enough, getting stopped out as it rejected that move or whatever. If I wanted to call this a wedge, in these first 3-minute candles there, should it have broken to the upside as it was breaking to the upside there, and had it broken to a new high of day, maybe it would have been a different story. But getting stopped out, just getting played with this thing, and I think even Chris mentioning too, and that's the mentality I carried with it, regardless of, gosh, this thing is just manipulatory. Even on that first day, from the very start, of just how wicky it was both ways, of going from high of day to pert near low of day within a few minutes, and then back to creating new high of day to scandalous just below low of day, and then absolutely tanking on big volume. And then even that afternoon of just pretending to be, okay, now we're an afternoon hold, we're breaking to the upside of VWAP, holding VWAP perfectly, creating new highs here, but still falling below where we were in the morning, and then sending off below VWAP even before the close. That is trading, and that's what these charts are, and that's what the current market environment is always going to be choppy. It is just evolving more and more into a scalper's mindset, but being able on trades like this and today of defining risk well and kind of being that mindset of, well, if it doesn't break that risk level, I'm just going to let it continue to do what it wants to do, like it certainly did today. It looks very dumb on my part to be selling into these tops when it came really nowhere even close. It broke VWAP a little bit, but didn't come anywhere close to breaking where it peeled off here around 772 that was, or even close to my previous risk of low of day for that initial trade entry. So saying, well, maybe now we have to embed that more into the trade thesis for these crazy low flow movers on multi-day charts like this. But that's just all continual learning lessons again. But for my specific trade, taking 20 shares, as it was pulling back on this big move, thought we were holding VWAP pretty well, started sizing in with, I think, 5 shares, 10 shares here. Tried to break to the downside of VWAP, but held again pretty nicely. Getting in more at 730 range, sizing in more to a full size at 20 shares for whatever I had left, is saying, I am confident in the trade. That's why I'm taking the trade. But gosh, yeah. And again, it's bleeding off of MNTS I can't, just because I was in and out of it 2 times already before, doesn't mean the chart is over. That doesn't mean that the trade isn't still going to happen. And it is just a little bit different of a perspective for me still in this cash account, and I know too, even if I want to step into that margin account, sub PDT account, that's still having to succumb to those day trades or using up cash versus being able to trade just fluidly whenever and wherever I want without any recourse in regards to trading restriction. But it does not matter what I've done beforehand, or if I feel I need to 3 strikes and you're out, stop myself out from trading it if I have taken a few losses on it already. That doesn't change the chart. That doesn't change what is going to happen, especially with my size that I'm trading. That's not going to change what's going to happen with the chart. So keeping that in mind, the factor of just because I feel like I'm burned out, or just because I feel like, oh, this one isn't going to turn into a winner because I've tried it so many times it's not going to work, stock market does not care. It's just going to continue to do what it wants to do. So always keeping that perspective in mind that it's not about, I'm going to say it 4 or 5 times now if I have to, but it's not about what my mindset is on it or what I've done with it. It's about what is it going to do, and relinquishing myself from my own perspective, acknowledging it and understanding it that it is a valid perspective, but it's not what the market's perspective is. So always bearing that in mind. And allowing me to get for this little final entry for this real trade entry of that 20 shares of sizing in, looking for a VWAP hold, and looking more so the trade idea was for us to start holding here, not really test harder to low of day, but to break, to hold off of this VWAP level area and start to test a high of day off of there. But sure enough, I still allowed it to trend that far, and I even had a stop at like 702. I didn't even push it to that $7 mark. I have it at 702, and I think just for how small of a size I had, it missed my stop for how quickly this candle was moving, dunking beneath that level. Sure enough, missed me, held, reclaimed a VWAP pretty nicely. And then a few minutes later, 9:55, we're finally getting the push to the upside there, get big volume to come in to squeeze this thing. Thought we were going to halt. Price action looked like it was haltiness. 831, that must have been for the high of that candle there. For how it was printing, it just 831, blocks of 831. Selling a little bit more into that. Selling some initially into that $8 break, seeing if that was going to provide any amount of resistance or just as a little sell off there. And then I looked at that as we were opening from the halter, we didn't actually halt, but price continued moving there as it was just kind of hovering itself again and getting a little bit doji, thinking, okay, well, maybe I should take a little bit more off. So then down to, I think all of these were 5 shares. So then still leaving 5 shares on last quarter position as kind of lottery. Hey, let it do what it wants to do, even through this huge we get to new high of day break there and that huge slam down with big volume. Okay, I'm still here for it. It hasn't broken key risk levels, still is holding that initial high of day break there, just above 770. Okay, sweet. And sure enough, this was a nice little pat in the back, little win of recognizing, okay, it tried again to break to new high there above 8.8. It's just not really working. Okay, final exit there for the 5 shares taking off there. But that certainly was not the end of the trade on the day. Absolutely beautiful, marvelous, magnificent, continual price action just going, holding above VWAP pretty much the entire day into the afternoon, and just right before the close, that final volume push comes in of shorts being tired of this thing, just letting it squeeze and rip and continuing into after hours there. Pretty insane and awesome to see. We'll see where this thing wants to continue to trend over the next few days. They're absolutely beautiful chart. I'm going to be staring at this one more and more over the next few days just as a studying pattern for SBFM, and that's really all I had. Not any hard scans that I've done as of yet, or hard looks in again at what I was doing specifically, but we'll get to that later tonight, and that is all that I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you guys on the next one.